Chapter 1351. Turn around and leave now, and you'll still have a chance. Otherwise, you'll lose all your face. A peak supreme being behind Tianjia said. You can try. In this world where the strong ruled, one had to fight until the other submitted. You're courting death, Tianjia. I'll teach him a lesson first. You watch from the side. This peak supreme being was called Feihai, one of the 4 heroes of the unfalling eagle tribe. The leader of the 4 heroes was Tianjia, and Lan Yu was also one of them. Tianjia nodded slightly, giving his opponent enough space and said, Move faster. Don't worry, it shouldn't take long. Feihai walked in front of Yi Chen and extended his right hand. A blue spear appeared in his hand. The spearhead was blood blue, and judging from its aura, it was clearly a 3-star Earth Saint weapon. Take this. With the holy spear in hand, Feihai shouted and stabbed at Yi Chen. In an instant, thousands of spear patterns surged out, as if thousands of little eagles were flying, full of freedom and unrestrained feeling. Your spear art isn't weak. Yi Chen was a bit surprised. Even though his opponent's spear art hadn't reached completion, it wasn't far from completion. Before becoming a supreme being, Yi Chen had always had an advantage in martial arts. But after becoming a supreme being, martial arts became his weakness. If it weren't for the word tyrant and illusion, he wouldn't even have a sword art at completion. Sword burial art. Facing the attack of thousands of spear patterns, Yi Chen used the space-time sword burial art. The sword burial art incorporated the essence of the word break. In terms of power, it might be a bit weaker than tyrant sword style and illusion sword style, but the powerful space-time sword aura could bury the opponent's time. Yi Chen stabbed out, and the thousands of spear patterns froze. Yi Chen's sword pierced through the spear patterns bit by bit, and finally landed on Feihai's chest. Poo blood blossomed. Yi Chen pulled back immediately, not intending to completely injure his opponent. Thump thump thump. The space-time sword aura disappeared, and Feihai took a few steps back as if he was struck by lightning. You are not my match, Yi Chen said to Feihai. Just as Feihai was about to say something, Tianjia said coldly, What is there to be smug about with the help of a sacred artifact? If I am not mistaken, the sword in your hand should be a 7-star sacred artifact. 7-star Earth Saint weapon. Everyone was shocked. Not to mention the Sky Saint artifact. There were only a few of them in the entire Wild's God continent. The Earth Saint artifact was what everyone was thinking about. The 7-star Earth Saint artifact was one of the best saint artifacts in the entire Wild's God continent. Normally, only legendary supremes could own one. What a coincidence, I also use a sword. The Heavenly Eagle sword in my hand is a 6-star Earth Saint artifact. Tianjia unsheathed a sword from his waist. The body of the sword was extremely sharp, giving people the sharpness of an eagle. The 4 heroes of the unfalling eagle tribe each had an Earth Saint tool, and all of them were 3-star Saint tools. If they wanted to upgrade their Star Saint tools, they could only rely on themselves. To upgrade the Heavenly Eagle sword to a 6-star Earth Saint tool, Tianjia had spent a lot of time and energy. Make your move. Yi Chen became serious. Eagle windbreak. Chi. The speed of Tianjia's sword was extremely fast. Although it was unbelievably fast, it gave people a feeling of flying elegantly, as if he was gliding in the wind. Great completion sword art. Yi Chen took a deep breath. It was within Yi Chen's expectation that his opponent would have the chance to comprehend the word martial and upgrade his supreme sword art to the great completion realm. Now he was looking forward to the word martial even more. It was still the sword burial art. If Tianjia's sword was a flexible sword, then Yi Chen's sword was a sword of stillness. When the 2 extreme swords collided, no one knew what would happen. Dang 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 dang. The sound of metal clashing filled the entire square. Yi Chen's sword burial art was forcibly broken by Tianjia's sword art. Tianjia's sword art was also a space-time sword art, and it was steadily suppressing Yi Chen. If it wasn't for the fact that Yi Chen had used a defensive stance at the critical moment, he wouldn't have been able to defend against his opponent's sword art. Powerful, his time profound should be at 80% completion. Yi Chen was very clear that it wasn't that his sword burial art was inferior to his opponent's sword art. but that his time profound was lower. He was at 70% completion, while his opponent was at 80%. Although the difference of 10% did not seem big, when it came to martial arts, the difference would be hundreds or even thousands of times. In other words, his opponent's space-time sword art was hundreds or thousands of times more powerful than Yi Chen's sword burial art. They were not even on the same level. Of course, Yi Chen's heaven sword was a 7-star Earth Saint weapon, while his opponent's was a 6-star Earth Saint weapon. Looking at the situation, Yi Chen was naturally at a disadvantage, being suppressed by Tianjia. Tianjia will win for sure. Seeing this, many young experts of the Unfalling Eagle tribe were very confident. The brat you brought back is not weak, but he doesn't seem to be Tianjia's opponent. In the tribe's palace, Liesheng smiled lightly. Lan Yu said, "Father, don't look down on him. He hasn't used his true ultimate skill yet." "Oh, he still has ultimate skills? Just wait and see." Lan Yu was very confident in Yi Chen. Passively taking a beating was not Yi Chen's style. The sword burial art was also not his strongest sword technique. His strongest sword technique was the illusory sword form. For experts with weak heart power, the illusory sword form was their nemesis. Yi Chen didn't think that he could comprehend the heart power realm from the word martial. Even if he could comprehend it, he wouldn't have enough time. The difficulty would be very high. The heaven sword was brandished, and a sword light bubble spread out, instantly covering the entire plaza. Everyone within the range of the illusory sword form was affected by the illusion. What's going on? What happened? The young experts realized that they were alone in the void. They couldn't see anyone else, and the sky was filled with flashing sword lights. Occasionally, all sorts of strange scenes would appear. The illusory sword form would produce different illusions according to each person's personality. Tianjia had a strong personality. The illusion he produced was an incomparably huge sword chi sweeping over. This sword chi seemed to want to split the entire prairie. It was unstoppable. Impossible, it's an illusion. Tianjia was, after all, the #1 expert of the Unfalling Eagle tribe, the leader of the 4 heroes. He instantly retreated from the illusion, and what welcomed him was an ordinary sword light. In an extremely sorry state, Tianjia blocked the sword light. However, in his haste, he did not have the time to gather his strength, and his entire body was sent flying. "Daddy, how was it?" Lan Yu said with a smile. Liesheng nodded. "Not bad. This move uses speed to produce illusions. It can reflect everything in one's mind, including the subconscious. People without strong enough heart power will find it difficult to block this move. All right, I agree to let him replace the Unfalling Eagle tribe in the Desolate God Tower." "You agree?" Lan Yu said excitedly. "Call him over in a while. I have something to discuss with him." It's not that simple. Liesheng was rather interested in Yi Chen, but the test had just begun. With Yi Chen's current strength, he was not on par with the other 3 young experts. It would be difficult for him to even enter the top 5. Everything depended on whether he had potential. If he had enough potential, he still had enough time. Chapter 1352. Again, Tianjia was extremely unconvinced. Yi Chen had not defeated him. He had only made him suffer a little. As long as he was not affected by the illusion, Yi Chen would definitely not be his match. Enough. At this moment Liesheng spoke. His voice spread to the plaza. Yes. No one dared to disobey the orders of the leader of the Unfalling Eagle tribe, not even Tianjia. Unfalling Eagle tribe's main hall. "You are not bad. You are qualified to represent my Unfalling Eagle tribe in the Desolate God Tower." Liesheng sized up Yi Chen and nodded to himself. Yi Chen felt extremely uncomfortable being stared at by the other party. The other party's eyes were like the sharpest scalpel in the world, able to see through all his secrets. Even his soul was under the other party's observation. Silver Martial Dao Yuan spirit, and not just a basic Silver Martial Dao Yuan spirit. The stronger the Martial Dao Yuan spirit, the more observant it was. It could see through all the secrets of others. It was said that if one could cultivate a gold Martial Dao Yuan spirit, they would not be far from becoming a true god. With a thought, they could cause the world to collapse and the opponent's body to disintegrate. That would be my honor, Yi Chen said. Ing Liexiong smiled. Very humble, but humble requires confidence. Lan Yu should have told you the details of the desolate God Tower. This time the details have been changed. Only those who reach the top 9 will receive a portion of time. First place will receive 2 portions. 1 portion is 10 years, 2 portions is 20 years. If you can reach the top 9, I can let you comprehend the word martial for a year. If you reach first place, you can comprehend it for 2 years. What do you think? No problem. Yi Chen nodded without the slightest hesitation. If it were someone else, they might think that the time was too little. However, Yi Chen didn't think so. First, he didn't have the chance to participate in the first place. Even if he managed to obtain the amount of time for the Unfalling Eagle tribe, the others wouldn't be able to give him too much time to comprehend. Second, the tribe was so big, and everyone wanted to comprehend the martial character. If he had more time to comprehend it, the others would naturally have less time to do so. Under such circumstances, 1 or 2 years was already a luxury. It's not over yet. What I just said is without external help. However, with your strength, you can only reach the top 9. There is no hope for the first one, but I have a way for you to increase your strength even faster. The prerequisite is that the time you need to comprehend the word martial must be halved. Reach the top 9, comprehend the word martial for half a year. Reach first, comprehend the word martial for a year. What? Yi Chen frowned. Ing Liexiong explained. My Unfalling Eagle tribe possesses 13 words left behind by a demigod. I can let you comprehend these words. For example, your time ultimacy is only at the 70% comprehension realm. I have the time word left behind by a demigod. As long as your perception is not low, you can raise your time ultimacy realm before challenging the desolate God Tower. Time. Yi Chen's heart stirred. The time ultimacy was extremely difficult to raise. With the time word left behind by a demigod, there was indeed hope of raising the time ultimacy realm. Alright. This was a rare opportunity. Yi Chen did not believe that with his current strength, he would be able to reach first place. Being able to borrow external help was naturally a good thing. Are there any other words? There is still the guard word. However, there should not be enough time. In another year, the 100 years will be up. In this year, it would be impressive if you can comprehend a bit of the essence of the time word. Actually, Ing Liexiong did not have much hope for Yi Chen. The main reason was that he did not give Yi Chen much time. He did not expect that only the top 9 would receive a portion of time. The first place would receive 2 portions. Yi Chen, comprehend the time word first. Don't be too impatient. Lan Yu reminded Yi Chen from the side. All right. Yi Chen nodded. A year was a little too short. Be it the time word or the guard word, they were both very important to him. The time word could help him raise his time ultimacy. The guard word could help him perfect his 5 elements defensive sword techniques. If he could comprehend these 2 words, his combat strength would greatly increase. This is the time word. Comprehend it well. Also, I have arranged a courtyard for you. In the future, that will be your residence until you leave. Ing Liexiong tossed a stone to Yi Chen. On it was a time word. Just 1 word could affect time. Yi Chen could clearly see that the time around the stone had stopped flowing. It was like a pool of stagnant water. After Yi Chen left, Ing Liexiong said to Lan Yu, I have given him the chance. Now it will depend on his comprehension. Lan Yu said, Father, Yi Chen's comprehension is really high. He is much stronger than me. Otherwise I wouldn't have brought him back. That is for the best. Right, tell me about what happened along the way. Ing Liexiong and Lan Yu started to talk about daily life. In the courtyard, Yi Chen did not waste any time, and started to comprehend the time word. What a weird word. Yi Chen found that once his consciousness entered the strange space of the time word, it stopped moving. He couldn't retract it even if he wanted to. He could only stay inside and watch. Time flew. Yi Chen's time profound slowly improved. Because his consciousness couldn't leave, Yi Chen continued to comprehend it. In the desolate God continent, if one didn't eat meat for a day, their strength would decrease. After a long time without meat, Yi Chen was so skinny that he was just a bag of bones. His strength had decreased by 1 or 2%. In the blink of an eye, 3 months passed. Yi Chen was so skinny that he didn't even look like a human. Lan Yu had been here once. Seeing Yi Chen like this, she frowned for a long time. Now, she finally understood why her father didn't want her to be in a hurry to comprehend the time word. It turned out that comprehending the time word required a huge price. People with low comprehension couldn't even comprehend it. Otherwise, their consciousness would be stuck in it forever, and they would die of exhaustion. Another month passed. So dangerous. Yi Chen's consciousness withdrew. The reason his consciousness could withdraw was because his time profound had reached 80% completion. To comprehend the time word, he had to improve his time profound before he could withdraw. Otherwise, his consciousness wouldn't be able to extricate itself. After recuperating for a week and eating a large amount of supreme meat, Yi Chen finally recovered his strength. With his time profound reaching 80% completion, the power of Yi Chen's sword burial art and death cut increased greatly. They were equivalent to great accomplishment sword moves. They weren't any weaker than Hegemon sword style and illusory sword style. Especially the sword burial art. Its power was even above illusory sword style. Illusory sword style used illusions to win, while sword burial art could make the opponent unable to move. Unless the opponent's time profound wasn't lower than Yi Chen's, and their heart power wasn't weak either. Still not enough. Yi Chen continued to comprehend the time word. The difference between time profound at 80% completion and time profound at 90% completion was like heaven and earth. 80% of time profound would allow the space-time sword art to have the power of a great accomplishment supreme sword art. 90% would be close to perfection. As for time profound at 100%, it would definitely surpass perfection supreme sword arts. One had to know that time profound was the strongest in battle. It was a level stronger than the other complementary profounds. It could contend with the most ordinary supreme sword arts. Chapter 1353. I underestimated him. Ing Liexiong had been observing Yi Chen these days. He was shocked to see Yi Chen raise his time profound to 80% in just 4 months. He had thought that Yi Chen would be able to raise his time profound to the peak of 70% in a year. Usually, the peak of 70% time profound would allow his mind to leave the strange space. He was prepared to use some energy to maintain Yi Chen's vitality. This little girl's eyes are really good. She casually found a peerless genius. Compared to the outsider called Evil Star from the Star Sea tribe, this boy's talent is much higher. I hope he can fight for 2 portions of time for the Unfalling Eagle tribe. Maybe I can give him more time to comprehend the word martial. Days passed. The young experts of the 5 tribes were all preparing. Star Sea tribe. Evil Star, you must get first place for the Star Sea tribe this time. On an island surrounded by the sea, the leader of the Star Sea tribe and a young man stood side by side. The young man was very handsome, and there was an evil aura in his eyes. This evil aura was not acquired but innate. Members of the evil spirit race usually had this kind of evil aura. However, it was not as thick as the young man's. Evil Star smiled calmly. Leader, don't worry. I was careless last time. I didn't expect the Battle Tower tribe's battle bear to be as strong as me. With some effort, I can definitely surpass him. That's for the best. Don't worry. I can make it up to you if there are any consequences. Thank you, leader. Evil Star looked up at the sky. The leader of the Star Sea tribe beside him disappeared without a sound. It's been 300 years. I wonder when I can return to the outside world and the familiar universe. He had disappeared 700 years ago, but he had only been in the Wild's God continent for 300 years. In the past 400 years, he had fallen into a dangerous place and came to the Wild's God continent by chance. When I return to the universe, the evil spirit race will definitely rise. The demons can only be on equal footing with the evil spirit race. Evil Star was very ambitious. He wanted to control the entire evil spirit race and make it one of the strongest races in the universe. He would not be ranked behind the demons and the human race. He clenched his fists tightly, and a terrifying evil shadow appeared above his head. Descending from the middle of the clouds, he stood high above, overlooking the common people. On a cliff that was covered in drifting clouds, A young man with boundless charisma stood there with his hands clasped behind his back. He quietly stood there, yet it was as though he was the center of the world, the ruler of the universe. His aura contained a terrifying charm, causing those with lower cultivation bases to be involuntarily attracted to him, wanting to submit to him. His body contained a tyrannical aura, the aura of a king, the aura of a leader, and the aura of a supreme genius. It was extremely hard to describe. As expected of the great demon king bloodline, the essence of the demons. An old man floated over. He was the leader of Yinzhong tribe, Yin Piaomiao. Leader. The young man did not even turn his head. His posture was neither servile nor overbearing. From the looks of it, you should be very confident in the desolate God Tower. Confidence is an illusory thing. I only believe in strength. Yin Piaomiao did not mind the other party's arrogance. He was well aware of how frightening the great demon king bloodline was. The other party had not even been in the desolate God continent for 100 years, yet he already had the strength of a legend sovereign. This was simply unimaginable. It should be known that the other party was only at the 7th life and death realm when he first arrived. It's good that you have such confidence. However, the Battle Tower tribe's war bear and the Redbud Flower tribe's Kong Shuili cannot be underestimated. They might also have the strength of a legend sovereign. The most noteworthy one is that young expert from the outside world called Evil Star. He should be a formidable opponent for you. Sovereign Evil Star. I've long wanted to defeat him, but I never had the chance. I'll let him know that there is only one genius in this world, and that's me. Hehe. Yin Piaomiao chuckled. In truth, he was still not used to interacting with the great demon king bloodline. The Battle Tower tribe was filled with towers. A young man who was even more muscular than a bear was training with a metal tower. His body gave off an intense feeling, as if his body was a supreme weapon, indestructible. Every single hair on his body was sharper than any weapon. As long as it was activated, it could easily pierce through anything. This was a pure body training, even purer than Yi Chen's immortal sword body. As for which was better, it was hard to say. Dong! The metal tower was thrown to the ground, and the muscular young man jumped up and slapped the top of the metal tower. Kacha! The metal tower sank a little, and with another slap, the metal tower continued to sink. After a few hundred slaps, only the top of the metal tower was left above the ground. 99 missions have been completed for today. Only one left. The muscular young man muttered to himself. In the Redbud Flower tribe, women were respected. In this place, the experts were mostly women. Men were few and far between. Moreover, as vassals, the ones in charge were all women. The Redbud Flower tribe was surrounded by countless flowers. The entire Redbud Flower tribe seemed to be growing in the midst of countless flowers, inseparable from them. On the southern side, a woman was currently plucking flowers. The strange thing was that the flowers she plucked were not real flowers, but rather illusory images of flowers. 1, 2, 3. Very soon, the flowers in her hands became a bunch, filled with a myriad of colors, and looked somewhat illusory. A female attendant walked over, and when she saw the flowers in the woman's hands, she was given a fright. This was because what she saw was not a bunch of flowers, but rather a bunch of sinister-looking snakes. Princess, the leader is asking for you. Okay, I'll be right there. The woman carried the flowers and followed behind the maid. Soon, the two of them arrived at the magnificent hall of the Redbud Flower tribe. In the main seat of the hall, a charming woman glanced at the flowers in the woman's hands. She couldn't help but smile. Shuili, seems like your heart force has reached another level. The woman casually tossed the flowers into the air. The illusions of the flowers instantly imprinted themselves on the walls on both sides of the hall, becoming vivid and lifelike murals. The word heart left behind by the demigod realm is extremely profound, second only to the word martial. Recently, my comprehension of the word heart has reached a new level. That's for the best. Last time, my Violet Gold Flower tribe held the word martial for 30 years. This time, we'll fight for 40 years. In these 40 years, I'll give you 10 years, so that your supreme martial arts can reach the perfection realm, and your martial will can reach the 9th level. The higher one's comprehension of the profound of time the harder it was to comprehend. This didn't mean that the profound of time was stronger than the profound of strength. The main reason was that the profound of time couldn't be separated from the profound of space, and the profound of space couldn't be separated from the profound of time. As the level of the profound of time increased, the power of time and space would become more and more terrifying. After another 6 months, Yichen finally raised his comprehension of the profound of time to 85%. Leave some time for the word guard. After his comprehension of the profound of time reached 80%, it was much easier to withdraw his consciousness. Yichen didn't intend to continue comprehending the word time. In the next 2 months, it would be hard for him to make any progress. He might as well use the time to comprehend the word guard, and try to raise the power of the 5 elements defensive sword art to the grand completion realm. This is the word guard for you. Ing Liexiong didn't refuse Yichen's request. On the contrary, he admired it. Most people would go crazy when they saw the word guard. How could they be as calm as Yichen? He left the rest of the time for the word guard. This was the best way to increase his strength. After obtaining the word guard, Yichen immediately entered the strange space. He didn't have much time left. He didn't dare to be certain that he could completely comprehend the essence of the word guard in 2 months. That was because it was even more profound than the words tyrant, break, and illusion. But as long as he could comprehend 20 to 30% of it, it should be enough for it to become a grand completion supreme defensive sword art. A grand completion supreme defensive sword art was twice as important as a grand completion supreme offensive sword art. If the attack was high and the defense was weak, then others could find your flaws and defeat you. But if your defense was also high, then even if others found your flaws, it would be very difficult to defeat you. Offense was used to defeat others, while defense was used to protect oneself. Yichen's advantage was that he had the immortal sword body. With the immortal sword body and the guard, even ordinary legendary supremes wouldn't be able to do anything to Yichen. Chapter 1354. In the center of the wilderness god continent, there was an ancient pagoda. The pagoda was very high, reaching all the way to the clouds. It was a place that even legendary supremes could not reach. On the eaves of every floor of the pagoda, there were 4 bells. The bells did not move at all, and even when the wind blew, it did not move. On the signboard on the first floor of the pagoda, there were 2 words, Wilderness God. On this day, dozens of people from each of the 5 tribes flew towards the Wilderness God Pagoda. 10 of them were the young experts of the tribes. Among the people of the Unfalling Eagle tribe, Lan Yu whispered to Yichen, Yichen, how much progress have you made in comprehending the word guard in 2 months? She was very clear about how terrifying Battle Bear, Kong Xueli, and Evil Star were. 100 years ago, the 3 of them were no weaker than Ing Tianjia. After 100 years, she really did not know what realm the 3 of them had reached. Perhaps they were already at the legendary supremes level. I have roughly comprehended 30 to 40% of its essence. Don't worry, my extreme prosperity decline has already reached the large success stage. With my defense, I still have a chance. In a short while the group arrived beside the Wilderness God Pagoda. The Wilderness God Pagoda released a faint pressure that made everyone not dare to make any noise. The people of the Star Sea tribe, Battle Pagoda tribe, Redbud Flower tribe, and Yunzhong tribe arrived slightly later than the people of the Unfalling Eagle tribe. The leaders of the 5 tribes did not look around and did not exchange glances with each other. The young experts sized each other up. After all, they were the ones to enter the Wilderness God Pagoda, so they had to see if there were any new faces. Who is that black-robed young man from Yunzhong tribe? Why haven't I seen him before? He should be a rising genius from Yunzhong tribe. He looks extraordinary. I actually feel subservient to him. How is this possible? Some of the young experts were puzzled and did not dare to look at him again. It seemed that if they looked at him again, their fighting spirit would vanish. In the Star Sea tribe, Evil Star frowned slightly. The black-robed young man gave him quite a bit of pressure. Furthermore, he felt that he was very familiar, but he was sure that he had never seen him before. Who is it? That damned black-robed man. How could Evil Star not know that the black robe looked ordinary, but it was able to shield him from observation. Zhang Xiong and Kang Xueli were also sizing up the black-robed youth. Zhang Xiong's eyes burned like torches as he tried to penetrate the black robe. However, no matter how hard he tried, his gaze lingered outside the black robe. What kind of black robe is this? It can actually block my heaven-battling Dharma eyes. It shouldn't be a sage artifact. The Desolate God Tower does not allow sage artifacts to be used. The Desolate God Tower paid particular attention to absolute fairness. Hence, sage artifacts could not be used. Only cardinal treasure weapons could be used. Kang Xueli closed her eyes. If someone with supreme heart force were here, they would definitely discover that a heart's eye had appeared in the void. This heart's eye was currently observing the black-robed young man. Heart's eye. The black-robed young man's heart stirred. When one's heart force reached an extremely high level, the heart's eye would be born. The heart's eye was more powerful than any other eye. It could observe down to the smallest detail and would not be affected in any way. The black-robed young man had the bloodline of the great demon king, but he believed that his heart force realm was inferior to Kang Xueli's. Of course, although his heart force realm was inferior, he could still interfere. In the next moment, the black robe fluttered without any wind. A distorted heart force appeared on it, causing the heart's eye to be unable to see anything unless Kang Xueli stubbornly wanted to see through it. However, it was clear that Kang Xueli had given up. Since the other party did not want others to know his identity, he definitely had a way to prevent others from observing him. Oh, at this moment, the black-robed young man's expression changed slightly. A pair of eyes had seen through his black robe. Following the source of the gaze, the black-robed young man saw Yi Chen of the Unfalling Eagle tribe. The two's gazes met. Yi Chen's netherworld sacred eye contained the will of hell. It could see through all secrets. Demonic energy, extremely pure demonic energy. Could it be the bloodline of the legendary Great Demon King? Yi Chen had never seen such pure demonic energy. Compared to the other party, the heavenly demon sovereign was like a firefly compared to the sun and moon. It was not even worth mentioning. Even the dark witch or dark goddess could not compare to such pure demonic energy. Yi Chen could not think of any other possibility. The only explanation was the bloodline of the Great Demon King. Yi Chen. The black-robed young man knew Yi Chen. It was also thanks to Yi Chen that he came to the Wild's God continent. The outside world was different from the Wild's God continent. It was very difficult to become a supreme in the outside world, but it was much easier in the Wild's God continent. However, for the Great Demon King bloodline, it was the same everywhere. The only difference was that there was Yi Chen in the outside world. Yi Chen became a supreme first, and was invincible among the young experts in the world. As for the black-robed young man, he was born too late. The first opportunity was seized by Yi Chen. It was difficult for him to suppress Yi Chen in the outside world. As a Great Demon King bloodline, he could not allow others to suppress him. Therefore, he was sent to the Wild's God continent by the demons through a special method. He wanted to establish his own mountain on the Wild's God continent, and then return to the universe in an invincible manner to completely suppress Yi Chen. But what would come would come. The two met on the Wild's God continent. Since everyone is here, let's begin. Chen Tianding, the leader of the Yunzhong tribe, said. Okay. The leaders of the 4 tribes nodded. The 10 of you do your best. Do not have any distracting thoughts. Ying Liexiong instructed Yi Chen's group. Yes. Go. Each tribe sent 10 young experts. A total of 50 young experts entered the first level of the Wild's God Tower. The Wild's God Tower had its own universe. The 50 young experts entered, but after entering, they were not together. This was a unique space. Yi Chen looked ahead and saw a lump of flesh squirming. Soon, the flesh turned into a member of the desolate race. He held a large saber and charged at Yi Chen. The sword in Yi Chen's hand was not the sky sword. In the Wild's God Tower, one could not use a sage artifact. He could only use a supremacy weapon. This sword was given to him by Ying Liexiong, the Heavenly Star Sword. It was a grade 5 supremacy sword. Yi Chen killed his opponent in one strike. The opponents on the first level of the Wild's God Tower were very weak. Yi Chen estimated that they were roughly equivalent to the weakest ordinary supremacy. Any genius supremacy could instantly kill him. The second level, the third level, with every level, the opponent's strength would increase. Soon, Yi Chen reached the 400th level. Ding-ling-ling. Outside, the bell rang crazily. Every time the bell rang, it meant that someone had passed that level. To the 50 young experts, the first few hundred levels were not difficult at all. It was just a matter of who was faster and who was slower. Finally, one person was eliminated. It was a young expert from the Battle Pagoda tribe. When this young expert saw that he was the first to be eliminated, his face turned ashen. The blow was too great. He knew that his strength was not much, but to be the first to be eliminated was too embarrassing. The Battle Pagoda tribe's leader snorted coldly and ignored him. Chapter 1355. After the 500th floor, more and more people were eliminated. After half a day, a total of 24 people had been eliminated. 3 from the Redbud Flower tribe, 5 from the Battle Pagoda tribe, 6 from the Yunzhong tribe, 4 from the Star Sea tribe, and 6 from the Unfalling Eagle tribe. In terms of overall strength, the Redbud Flower tribe was clearly superior. At this moment, Yi Chen had already reached the 600th floor. He was one of the fastest. From the 600th floor onwards, the Desolate Spirit already had the strength of a quasi-legend sovereign. It was no longer something that could be easily dealt with. Fortunately, the Desolate Spirit in the Desolate God Tower only needed to deal a certain amount of damage to pass. There was no need to completely annihilate the opponent. Of course, there was no chance of completely annihilating the Desolate Spirit. After parrying the Desolate Spirit's attack, Yi Chen thrust the Heavenly Star Sword forward. The sword beam pierced through the Desolate Spirit's forehead. When fighting against a true quasi-legend sovereign, this strike would definitely not be able to take the opponent's life. It would even be difficult to injure the opponent. One would need to use a supreme sword technique. However, against a Desolate Spirit, there was no need to be so particular. The 601st floor, the 620th floor, the 675th floor. After passing through floor after floor, Yi Chen successfully surpassed the previous Desolate God Tower's highest score of the 655th floor. However, this result was nothing. Now, even Lan Yu had surpassed the previous Desolate God Tower's highest score. 100 years had passed, and everyone had made great progress. It would be strange if they stagnated. Among them, the black-robed youth was the fastest. He had already reached the 685th floor, followed by Kong Xueli, who had reached the 682nd floor. Evil Star had reached the 680th floor. War Xiong was slightly lower than Yi Chen, at the 672nd floor. As for the others, they were not as lucky. If they were not eliminated, they were in a deadlock. They could not defeat the Desolate Spirit in a short period of time, but they were unwilling to be eliminated. The crystal tablet at the entrance of the first floor of the Desolate God Tower displayed a row of images. The first was the black-robed youth's image. Behind the image was the number 685, indicating that he had passed the 685th floor. The second was Kong Xueli. There were a total of 50 people's images. Yi Chen was ranked 4th, and the last person had only reached the 425th floor. He was the first young expert from the Battle Pagoda tribe to be eliminated. Of the 50 images, 15 were colored, and the rest were gray. Colored meant that they were still trying, and gray meant that they had quit. Titan, looks like it will be very difficult for your Battle Pagoda tribe's battle bear to get first place this time. Chen Tianding, the leader of the Star Sea tribe, looked at Titan with a smile. War Pagoda was ranked 5th. Titan coldly snorted. That's not necessarily true. War Bear's offense and defense are balanced. His speed in the tower might not be the fastest, but he is definitely the steadiest. Watch. Tai images. After 2 hours, there were only 9 images left. These 9 images were the top 9. The Unfalling Eagle tribe's leader, Ing Liexiong, had an ugly expression on his face. Ing Tianjia had actually been eliminated and did not enter the top 9. In the previous Desolate God Tower, he had made it to 5th place, earning some time for the Unfalling Eagle tribe. Lan Yu was eliminated along with Ying Tianjia. Although Lan Yu's strength was not weak, she was still too inexperienced. She was unable to make it into the top 9. If not for Yi Chen standing in front of them, the unfalling eagle tribe would have lost a lot of face. Ying Tianjia's face alternated between green and white. He did not even dare to look at Ying Liexiong. This time he had suffered a huge blow. It was a bigger blow than losing to Yi Chen. Losing to Yi Chen was a personal honor, but not making it into the top 9 was the tribe's honor. Leader, I will definitely work hard next time. Ying Tianjia braced himself and said, Don't say any more. Ying Liexiong waved his hand. He was a bit lucky. Luckily, had brought Yi Chen back. Otherwise, the unfalling eagle tribe would have been completely annihilated. They would not even be able to fight for a single time. The leader of Yunzhong tribe, Yun Piaomiao, smiled and said to Ying Liexiong, Your unfalling eagle tribe is quite lucky. There is actually one more person in the top 9. Ying Liexiong sneered. Don't be happy too early. As long as he can make it to first place, the unfalling eagle tribe will still get 2 times shares. 2 times shares was equivalent to 20 years. It was an average. It was neither a profit nor a loss. If he can make it to first place, I will lose 3 divine stones to you. How about that? Yun Piaomiao made a bet. Ying Liexiong said without hesitation, Remember to keep your word. Don't worry. With so many people here, of course I will keep my word. But what if he doesn't make it to first place? At most, I will give you 3 divine stones. It's a deal. The 2 made the bet, and then ignored each other, quietly watching the changes in the rankings. 685, 686, 687, 690, 695, 700. The black-robed youngster, who was ranked first, rushed to the 700th floor in one breath. One had to know that the 700th floor and above corresponded to the strength of the legendary supremes. Moreover, looking at the black-robed youngster's speed, it was very average. It seemed like he didn't encounter any obstacles. This was completely different from passing 1 floor in half a day. So powerful. He actually made it to the 700th floor. Could it be that he can fight against the legendary supremes? Although the young experts of Yunzhong tribe had seen the black-robed youngster before, they weren't too familiar with him. Moreover, they had been defeated by him before. At this moment, they realized that the black-robed youngster's strength was much stronger than theirs. He had never fought against them seriously before. Naturally, he can fight against the legendary supremes if he made it to the 700th floor. However, he should just be an ordinary legendary supremes. Let's see how many floors he can reach. Yun Lai, who used to be the top young expert of Yunzhong tribe, said. Yun Piaomiao looked at Ying Liexiong proudly. The bloodline of the great demon king was so terrifying. There was no doubt that he would be ranked first. Ying Liexiong's expression changed slightly. As a legendary supremes, he could tell that this wasn't the black-robed youngster's limit. He looked down. Kong Xueli, who was ranked second, had made it to the 695 floor. Evil Star had made it to the 690 floor. Yi Chen had made it to the 688 floor. It wasn't too bad. Father, don't worry. Yi Chen's physical defense is very strong. Lan Yu reminded Ying Liexiong. Yes, Ying Liexiong nodded slightly. Although a high defense didn't mean that he was fast, he could at least resist. As for the black-robed youngster, his attacks must be very strong. Soon, Kong Xueli had also made it to the 700th floor. Kong Siwei, the leader of the Redbud Flower tribe, smiled. Being ranked first now didn't mean that she would be ranked first in the future. She was very confident in Xueli. Unknowingly, there were only 5 people left in the desolate God Tower. The other 4 had been eliminated. Everyone was paying attention to their rankings and the floors they had passed. Chapter 1356. Following that, Evil Star also reached the 700th floor. This meant that 3 out of the 5 had the strength of a legendary supremacy. It was unknown if Yi Chen and War Bear could reach the 700th floor. Everyone in the Unfalling Eagle tribe held their breaths. Whether Yi Chen could reach the first place was very important to them. If he could not, they would only get a portion of time, which was 10 years. It was too little. Of course, This could not be blamed on Yi Chen. The three people before him were too abnormal. Everyone in the Battle Pagoda tribe had grave expressions. They did not expect the competition to be so intense. 695. 696. 697. 698. Lan Yu felt that she had stopped breathing. She stared at Yi Chen's number of floors. 699. 700. Yeah. Lan Yu shouted. Ing Liexiong let out a sigh of relief. There was a huge difference between reaching the 700th floor and not reaching the 700th floor. Reaching the 700th floor meant that Yi Chen also had the power of a legend-rank supreme warrior, and there would be more competition after that. Yun Piaomiao, the leader of the Yunzhong tribe, snorted coldly. He thought to himself, I have underestimated this kid. Outsiders really cannot be underestimated. After that, War Bear also reached the 700th floor. Tai Tan, the leader of the Battle Pagoda tribe, did not have any expression on his face. He already knew that War Bear had the strength of a legendary supremacy. Reaching the 700th floor was expected, so there was no need to make a fuss about it. In the blink of an eye, the five had been fighting in the desolate God Tower for 3 days and 3 nights. The closer one's strength was, the harder it was to defeat the other. This was because they were in the desolate God Tower. If they were in the outside world, if two opponents of similar strength wanted to completely defeat the other, they might not be able to determine the victor even after several days and nights. At the moment, the black-robed youth was still in first place. He had reached the 718th floor. Kong Xueli was second, 715th floor. Evil Star was third, 712th floor. Yi Chen was fourth, 710th floor. War Bear was fifth, 706th floor. The gap between the five had shrunk a little. The slowest and fastest were only separated by 12 floors. Another 2 days passed, and none of the five were eliminated. The black-robed youngster cleared 725 levels. Kong Xueli 723, Evil Star 721, Yi Chen 720, and War Bear 718. The gap between the two had shrunk even further. The main reason was that the desolate spirit would grow stronger the further it went, and the longer it would take to defeat its opponent. On the 721st floor, Yi Chen brandished the Heavenly Star sword in his hand. He did his best to search for the desolate spirit's weak points. At this stage, he had no choice but to bring out his full strength. After fighting for 5 days and 5 nights, his mind, chi, and spirit were all focused. He had already fought to the point of forgetting himself. Dang dang dang. Sparks flew everywhere. Not only was Desolate Spirit's offense and defense powerful, but its combat techniques were also flawless. If one wanted to find an opening, one would have to take the initiative to force it to reveal one. Got it. After exchanging several thousand blows, Yi Chen finally found a small opening and pierced his sword through Huang Ling's throat. The 722nd floor. Daddy, Yi Chen passed another floor. Lan Yu said excitedly to Ing Liexiong. Ing Liexiong sighed. A year ago, Yi Chen's strength was far inferior to his current strength. Who would have thought that in just a year, he would improve so much? If he comprehended the word martial, how strong would he be? Ing Liexiong didn't even dare to think about it. How could this be? Ing Tianjie was dumbfounded. Before, he was not convinced of Yi Chen's strength. But at this moment, he no longer had any intention or fighting spirit to find trouble with Yi Chen. 5 heroes contending for supremacy, but only one can look down on the others. This really makes one's blood boil. The leader of the Star Sea tribe, Chen Tianding, sighed. The 723rd floor, the 724th floor. Yi Chen steadily advanced. A day later, he reached the 727th floor. But while he was improving, the others weren't slow either. The black-robed youth was the first to pass the 730th floor. Kong Xueli reached the 728th floor. Xiaxing and Yi Chen were both at the 727th floor. War Bear was gradually pulled away from him. He was now at the 723rd floor. This wasn't to say that War Bear was weak. It was mainly because he was the type to attack head-on. It was difficult to defeat him, but it was also difficult for him to defeat others. I'm almost at my limit, Xie did not know how the others were doing, but he was almost at his limit. Evil reincarnation. An evil phantom image appeared behind him. As the phantom image entered his body, Xie combat strength immediately skyrocketed. This was a terrifying mystic technique that dealt 1,000 damage to the enemy and 800 damage to oneself. The 730th floor, the 731st floor, the 732nd floor. Xie reached the 735th floor in one go. He officially surpassed the black-robed youth and became first. Unfortunately, the side effects of using evil reincarnation came. With a moment of carelessness, Xie was eliminated from the Desolate God Tower. When he walked out of the Desolate God Tower, Xie specially glanced at the crystal stone monument. He frowned. He was indeed first, but the other four were still inside. Well done. The leader of the Star Sea tribe, Chen Tianding, said to Xie. Xie did not say a word. His eyes stared intently at the black-robed youth's number of floors. He was now at the 733rd floor, only 2 floors away from his first place. Don't worry. They are basically at their limits. You have at least a 50% chance of obtaining first place. Chen Tianding was more worried about the black-robed youth. He hid his strength very well. He wanted to ask the leader of the Yunzhong tribe, Yin Piaomiao, but the black-robed youth did not say anything. Just as Chen Tianding had expected, the black-robed youngster had been stuck on the 733rd floor for a long time. It was obvious that he had reached a critical point. Kang Xueli and Yi Chun were also at the critical point. On the other hand, the war bear was climbing up step by step. In terms of offense and defense, no one could compete with him. The second to be eliminated was Kang Xueli. She was very strong. She had forcefully made it to the 734th floor. Clearly, she had used all her strength to temporarily surpass the black-robed youth. When she came out, her expression was ugly. However, she quickly regained her composure. Since she could not obtain first place, there was no longer any meaning to her ranking. Fortunately, the Redbud Flower tribe still led the way. 3 people made it into the top 9, earning 3 portions of the time. It was obvious that they had profited. The third to be eliminated was War Bear, which was out of everyone's expectations. They all thought that the third to be eliminated would be Yi Chen. War Bear's offense and defense were strong. He was very resilient. War Bear was eliminated one day after Kang Xueli. He had passed 1 floor less than Kang Xueli, reaching the 733rd floor. Unlucky. War Bear shook his head, feeling very depressed. Ring ring ring. A bell rang out. The black-robed young man had reached the 734th level. He had spent too much time on the 733rd level. Although no one could see what was going on inside, they could guess that he must have experienced a bitter battle before he finally made it through. Now the black-robed youth was only 1 floor away from Xie floor. As for Yi Chun, he was still ranked 5th. War Bear had used his trump card at the last moment and surpassed him. His current number of floors was the 732th floor. Chapter 1357. In order to pass the 732th level, Yi Chun had used all his skills. He had basically been defending for half a day before launching a counterattack. It could be said that comprehending the word guard and the immortal sword body accounted for 90% of the credit for Yi Chun reaching the 732th level. As for his attacks, although his time profound had reached 85% completion, his sword burial art was much stronger than tyrant sword form and illusory sword form, and his death cleave was slightly stronger than tyrant sword form and illusory sword form. The desolate spirit on this level was too monstrous. Its attacks were much stronger than Yi Chen's. Yi Chen could only slowly turn the situation around and find an opportunity to counterattack. Yi Chen didn't know how many levels the others had reached, but he knew that the Great Demon King's bloodline was definitely above his. This was an intuition without any reason. The Great Demon King's bloodline was the legendary bloodline of the demons. Their bloodline contained limitless potential that would never be exhausted. Once the Great Demon King's bloodline appeared, no matter how amazing a genius was, they would be overshadowed. Since ancient times, It wasn't that there weren't any geniuses that could compete with Yi Chen, but there were almost none that could surpass the Great Demon King's bloodline. Some people said that the Great Demon King's bloodline was the pinnacle of bloodlines in the world. They appeared to accept the worship and fear of the world, continued to persevere, whether it was for himself or for the future of the human race. Yi Chen felt that he couldn't give up now. Once he gave up, it would be difficult to compete with the Great Demon King's bloodline, or even surpass it. Dang 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 dang. The desolate spirit on the 733th level was suppressing Yi Chen. Yi Chen wanted to counterattack several times, but he was suppressed by the desolate spirit. There was no chance for him to counterattack. Every time he tried his best to defend, it made Yi Chen's mind tense. He was very clear that as long as he made a mistake, the desolate spirit would find an opportunity to eliminate him. I can't hold on any longer. Although Yi Chen gritted his teeth and persevered, he had reached his limit. Pwah! Yi Chen's defense finally broke as the desolate spirit cleaved off Yi Chen's left arm. Blood splattered all over Yi Chen's face. In the blink of an eye, the desolate spirit's second strike came at Yi Chen's head. This strike was unavoidable for Yi Chen. In the extreme danger, Yi Chen's expression changed. He seemed to have returned to the strange space where he saw a human figure continuously performing defensive sword arts. Before entering the desolate god tower, due to the short time, he only had 2 months to comprehend it. Therefore, he had only managed to comprehend 30 to 40% of the essence. However, right now, some of the essence of the word defend had appeared in his mind out of nowhere. It was imprinted in the deepest part of his soul, like a slow-motion video. So you can defend like this? Yi Chen was deep in thought. Time seemed to have slowed down, and Yi Chen subconsciously rotated his right arm. Dang! The heavenly star sword blocked Huang Ling's saber, and he borrowed the force of Huang Ling's saber, causing Huang Ling's saber to strike him instead. True defense was not a single-minded defense. Defense also contained offense. It was just like how yin and yang did not grow alone. Defense was at its peak, while offense was at its peak. When offense reached the pinnacle, it also contained defense. It was the same principle. With his understanding of the word defend, it became much easier for Yi Chen to deal with the desolate spirit. Most of the power that the desolate spirit exerted was diverted away by Yi Chen, causing a backlash on the desolate spirit. Puff! A saber light flashed. Yi Chen was fine, but Huang Ling's head flew up. Level 733 passed. Level 734. The black-robed youth was covered in blood. After all, he was still too young. Although he had limitless potential, he faced the same predicament as Yi Chen, which was that he did not have enough time. If he had another 100 years, not to mention level 734, he was confident that he could even pass level 800. This is also my chance. The Great Demon King bloodline is an invincible bloodline. As long as there is enough pressure, I will definitely be able to make a breakthrough. Time to break through. The black-robed youth forgot everything as he punched out crazily. Every punch brought with it a dazzling black brilliance, like a black meteor flashing across the pitch-black starry sky. His punches became faster and more tyrannical. Finally, the black-robed youth's aura soared. Break! When his aura soared to the limit, the black-robed youth's fist force increased to an unimaginable level. When he punched out, space trembled. Huang Ling was sent flying, and a huge crater appeared in his chest. Level 734 passed. Following that, the black-robed youth passed level 735. His result tied with Evil Star. How is this possible? Their speed suddenly increased. Outside the desolate god tower, everyone was dumbfounded. Originally, they thought that the two had reached their limits. Who knew that Yi Chen's speed would increase first, and then the black-robed youth's speed would increase as well? They broke through. Ing Liexiong spat out a turbid breath. These two youths were too stunning. Compared to them, Ing Tianjia was like comparing a firefly to the sun and moon. Are these the people from the outside world? Tai Tan, the leader of the Battle Pagoda tribe, frowned. The number of supremes in the outside world was countless times less than the desolate god continent, but there were some terrifying peerless geniuses like the black-robed youth, Yi Chen, and Evil Star. Damn it! Who is he? Evil Star could not guess the black-robed youth's identity. Time passed quickly, and soon, the black-robed youngster reached the 736th step, officially surpassing Evil Star. Behind him, Yi Chen also reached the 735th step. This is too easy. Yi Chen borrowed the opponent's strength to fight. Even if the opponent's attack was stronger than his, less than 30% of the attack was effective. The remaining 70% was all transferred by Yi Chen to the opponent. Level 736. Level 737. Level 740. This was the first time Yi Chen felt that defense could be so powerful and domineering. It was simply invincible. No matter how strong the opponent's attack was, unless it was too much stronger, it could be transferred back. Even if it couldn't be transferred back, it could still easily dissipate half of the force. If I can comprehend the entire essence of the word defend, it should be even easier. Yi Chen estimated that he had roughly comprehended 70% to 80% of the essence of the word defend. If Yi Chen had made a breakthrough in his defense, then the black-robed youth had made a breakthrough in his offense. His extreme offense allowed him to be unstoppable. However, it also proved that one could not last long. No matter how strong one's offense was, if one could not defeat the opponent in an instant, then it would be time to test one's defense. Clearly, the black-robed youth's defense was not as good as Yi Chen's. He had just used his offense to cover up this weakness. Pucci, the black-robed youth, was split into two by the saber strike. His result was the 745th level. As he walked out of the desolate god tower, his heart skipped a beat. Yi Chen had not come out yet, and the projection was still colored. He had only cleared level 743. The Desolate Spirit Saber technique in the next two levels is very domineering. Let's see how you clear them. Thinking of how terrifying the 744 and 745 levels were, the black-robed youth calmed down. Chapter 1358. Just as the black-robed young man had said, the Desolate Spirit on the 744th level was extremely monstrous. Its blade art was unbelievably tyrannical. Every time it slashed out, there would be a thunderous explosion. 5 colored lightning flashed on the treasured blade, like 5 different colored lightning dragons converging together, bursting out with a blade energy that could destroy all life. Dang! As soon as they clashed, Yi Chen immediately felt that something was wrong. The opponent's blade art was too exquisite and overbearing. His own sword stance was at its peak, and then declined. No, it should be called the defensive sword stance. Although the defensive sword stance was much stronger than ordinary Great Success Supreme Sword Arts, it had not reached the level of a perfect supreme martial art. Moreover, the Desolate Spirit's blade art was not far from perfection. In terms of maturity, it was no weaker than the defensive sword stance. Yi Chen had no way to borrow strength to counter it. Sword burial art. Switching from defense to offense, Yi Chen stabbed towards the oncoming Desolate Spirit. Thousands of petals fluttered in the air, and the Desolate Spirit's movements became slower and slower. Finally, it froze in the void, but just as Yi Chen was about to stab it, the Desolate Spirit's body trembled and slid away like a fish, avoiding the sword. The Desolate Spirit on this level had incredible heart force. It could be immune to 90% of the power of space and time. The power of the heart surpassed everything. As long as the heart was strong enough, there was really nothing that could restrain it. In the end, Yi Chen relied on the defensive sword stance to defeat the Desolate Spirit. After all, the Desolate Spirit's attacks could not break the defensive sword stance. Yi Chen could use the defensive sword stance to block when the Desolate Spirit attacked, and then wait for an opportunity to counterattack. And when the Desolate Spirit faced Yi Chen's attacks, it could only block or dodge again and again. There was bound to be a flaw. The 745th level. This level of Desolate Spirit was equivalent to an enhanced version of the previous level. The blade technique seemed to have surpassed Yi Chen's defensive sword form. The penetration of the Thunder Blade force was extremely strong. Fortunately, Yi Chen's immortal sword body was not weak either. Even if the defensive sword form could not offset all the blade force, the immortal sword body could still barely withstand it. Outside the desolate god tower, the black-robed youth's expression turned gloomy. He was just one level away, and Yi Chen's results would be the same as his. Originally, he did not think much of Yi Chen, thinking that it was only natural for him to surpass him. However, now he could faintly feel that Yi Chen would be his greatest opponent in this life, a formidable opponent. After 12 hours, Yi Chen passed the 745th floor. After spending a day, Yi Chen passed the 746th floor. When he reached the 747th floor, Yi Chen's defensive sword stance collapsed. It could not be defended at all. The Desolate Spirit's blade technique had reached the level of a perfected supreme blade technique. With just one strike, Yi Chen's defensive sword stance was broken. With the second strike, Yi Chen was sent flying. With the third strike, Yi Chen was cleaved in half. It was a clean and efficient move. Finally, Yi Chen reached the 746th floor, one level higher than the black-robed youth. We won! Lan Yu cried out in excitement. We really won! Ing Liexiong was also very happy. It was not easy for him to obtain first place. At least, he did not embarrass the Unfalling Eagle tribe. He decided to give all the 3 divine stones from the bet with Yin Miao Miao to Yi Chen. After all, they had benefited greatly from Yi Chen. The time to comprehend the Wu character was also given to Yi Chen. Originally it was 1 year, but now it was 2 years. No more. He had to comprehend the Wu character. Lan Yu also had to comprehend the Wu character. And some of the elders of the Unfalling Eagle tribe also had to comprehend the Wu character. Yi Chen obtaining first place was out of everyone's expectations. The leaders of the other 4 tribes were a little indignant. Yin Miao Miao, when will you give me my 3 divine stones? Ing Liexiong said. Yin Miao Miao's heart was filled with hatred. He originally thought that the great Demon King bloodline would definitely be able to get first place. But who knew that there would be a time when the bloodline could not compete with others? 3 divine stones was not a small number. Even if it was him, he would have to spend a lot of effort and time to obtain it. But as the leader of a rank 8 tribe, he still wanted to save face. I only have 2 divine stones here. The remaining one, I'll give it to you in the future. As he spoke, Yin Miao Miao took out 2 divine stones from his storage ring and threw them to Ing Liexiong. Haha, no rush. I, Ing Liexiong, am not a stingy person. The remaining one, you can give it to me in 1 year. Ing Liexiong stated the time limit of 1 year. Otherwise, who knew how long the other party would drag it out for? Ing Liexiong, you really hid yourself well. You managed to find an outside genius to help you without making a sound. The leader of Star Ocean Tribe, Chen Tianding, looked at Yi Chen with interest and said to Ing Liexiong, Luck, luck. Ing Liexiong laughed. Let's go. The Battle Tower Tribe's Titan turned around and left with a dark face. This time, the Battle Tower Tribe only had 1 person in the top 9, which was the tribe with the least amount of time. Brother, let's spar when we have time. The Battle Bear did not really care about this result, so he sent a message to Yi Chen before leaving. Evil Star looked at the young man in black robes, and then at Yi Chen, his brows furrowed. He did not know where these 2 came from, but he had a feeling that they would have countless conflicts in the future. I, Evil Star Supreme, have dominated the world for so many years. I will not give up easily. For the first time, Evil Star felt that he had not worked hard enough before. If these 2 had appeared earlier, perhaps his power would have been even higher, because only with competition would he have the will to fight. Interesting, but this is what makes it challenging. With the bloodline of the great Demon King, the black-robed young man did not have any weaknesses. It was the same for his temperament. Losing to Yi Chen did not make him feel any negative emotions. This only stimulated his potential. Since ancient times, there had been many astounding geniuses. The bloodline of the great Demon King could not gain the upper hand from the beginning, but the final victor was undoubtedly the bloodline of the great Demon King. Continue working hard. The stronger you are, the stronger I will be. The black-robed young man was like a black bolt of lightning, disappearing on the spot. After the people from the 4 major tribes left, the people from the Unsetting Eagle tribe also began their journey back to the Unsetting Eagle tribe. On the crystal tablet at the entrance of the first level of the Wilderness God Tower, the 50 images gradually disappeared. The top 3 flickered. According to the rules, the first tribe would be the first to obtain the word Wu. Previously, Yunzhong tribe was the last to obtain the word Wu. Therefore, the next day, Yunzhong tribe's leader, Yin Piaomiao, sent the word Wu over. Yi Chen was not in a hurry to comprehend the word Wu. He planned to first comprehend the word time and guard. According to the literal meaning of the word Wu, it contained the ultimate profoundness of martial arts. Without sufficient preparation, it would be very strenuous to comprehend it. 2 years might be a waste of time. After spending an entire year, Yi Chen finally comprehended the time ultimacy to the 90% realm. However, in the following months, it was difficult for him to progress further. It turned out that after the time ultimacy reached the 90% realm, he needed to raise his martial Dao Yuan soul to the silver rank if he wanted to continue comprehending it. The power of space and time, which was formed by the combination of the time ultimacy and space ultimacy, was the strongest power. It was not easy to control it. With the time ultimacy at the 90% realm, Yi Chen's sword burial art had finally reached perfection. It was a truly perfected supreme sword move. With one strike, 3,000 flower petals danced. Chapter 1359. After passing the word to Liuxiong, Yi Chen began to comprehend the word defend. Yi Chen had already comprehended 70 to 80% of the word's essence, only lacking the last 20 to 30%. As long as he comprehended this 20 to 30%, he would be able to reach the level of a perfect supreme defensive sword technique. In the strange space of the word defend, the silhouette displayed the defensive sword technique again and again. Every time he displayed the defensive sword technique, Yi Chen would gain some insights. Defense is just a goal. The process does not need to be blindly defensive. One can borrow strength to fight strength. One can retreat to advance. One can advance to retreat. One can meet force with force. One can change hardness to softness. One can use softness to overcome hardness. The process is ever changing, but the result is the same, which is to block the enemy's attack. Leaving the strange space of the word defend, Yi Chen took out the heavenly star sword and began to practice. In the past, when Yi Chen used the sword technique, the 5-colored sword light would form a huge ball of light to protect Yi Chen. Now, when Yi Chen used the sword technique, the sword light would change from visible to invisible, from color to colorless, but once it entered the range of the sword technique, it would be out of control. The sword energy would surge, making it hard for people to tell what was real and what was fake. Instead, it was 10 to 100 times stronger than the huge ball of light formed by the 5-colored sword light. On this day, Liuxiong arrived nearby. Excited to see his prey, Liuxiong punched at Yi Chen. Be careful. Liuxiong was a top expert among the legendary supremes. His fist energy was vast. Even if it was just a casual attack, it would far surpass the desolate spirit on the 747th floor of the desolate god tower. Before the fist energy arrived, Yi Chen's sword technique had already fluctuated, like a tsunami crashing over, wanting to destroy all of his defenses. Retreat to advance, use softness to overcome hardness, turn hardness to softness, meet force with force, advance to retreat, borrow strength to fight strength. Almost subconsciously, Yi Chen took a series of measures. First, he avoided the sharpness of the fist power, avoiding the most powerful attacking point of the fist power. Then he softened his sword power, using softness to defeat the toughness. When the fist power weakened a bit, his sword power suddenly became more aggressive. He took the posture of advancing, as if he was retreating. Finally, he used the power of the fist power to counterattack, which dissolved most of the fist power. Although the remaining part of the fist power could not be dissolved, the damage it brought was reduced by hundreds of times. All right, this defensive sword stance of yours is almost at perfection, right? Liuxiong praised. He had only used 1/10,000th of his strength in that punch. It should be known that he was different from Yi Chen. Yi Chen's battle prowess had only reached the legendary supreme level, while he had reached the legendary supreme level in all aspects. In every aspect, he was far superior to Yi Chen. Therefore, even if it was just 1/10,000th of his strength, Not everyone would be able to withstand it. Just a little more. Yi Chen let out a breath and looked at Ing Lai Xiong. There's no rush. Cultivating martial arts isn't something that can be done in a day. Sometimes you need to gain enlightenment. Yes, the leader is right. How could Yi Chen not understand? Right now his defensive sword stance was infinitely close to perfection, but it was just lacking a little bit. Yi Chen had a feeling that if he wanted to reach perfection, he had to grasp the principle of returning to the origin. It was like a whirlpool in the deep sea. It didn't matter if it was a glacier or a tsunami. As long as the whirlpool was big enough, it would be able to swallow everything and dissolve everything. When are you preparing to comprehend the word Wu? Lan Yu has already comprehended it for almost a year. When the year is up, we will decide on the next person to comprehend it. Ing Lai Xiong asked. Yi Chen thought for a while and said, then it's my turn. Who knows? I might be able to comprehend the essence of the word defend. All right. Ing Lai Xiong nodded. Very quickly, Lan Yu came out of seclusion. On the first day, she came to find Yi Chen and wanted to spar with him. Yi Chen, you need to be careful. This time, comprehending the word Wu has allowed my blade techniques to improve by leaps and bounds. All of them have reached perfection. Just bring it on. Yi Chen smiled. Revolving blade wheel. Lan Yu used a powerful blade technique right from the start. The spiraling blade light swept around crazily. Compared to the past, revolving blade wheel's charging time was shorter, and the explosion was fiercer. Break. Using Overlord sword stance, Yi Chen blocked it with his sword. Clang clang clang. Overlord sword stance was also a great perfection sword technique, and it was evenly matched with revolving blade wheel. When the blade and sword clashed, sparks flew everywhere. Overlord blade chop. Void breaking blade. Illusionary moon blade. Lan Yu's ultimate moves were frequent. Every move was a great success supreme saber move, and it wasn't an ordinary great success supreme saber move. Unfortunately against Yi Chen, none of these techniques were effective. Taste the blade technique I created based on the word Wu. Blue Age. Lan Yu's whole body leapt up and gently slashed down with her blade. All of a sudden, a crystal shattering sound was heard, and blue crystal fragments were everywhere. Yi Chen's sword attack could not completely destroy the crystals, and could only make them more and more fragmented, which was hard to defend against. Amazing! How could Yi Chen not see that Lan Yu's blade technique was close to perfection? If he used sword burial art, Yi Chen would definitely be able to break it, but he wanted to try defensive sword stance. When defensive sword stance was used, the sword light was formless and colorless, but Lan Yu could clearly feel a whirlpool forming where Yi Chen was. Her blade energy disappeared without a trace. Of course, Blue Age was close to perfection. Although it couldn't break Yi Chen's defensive sword stance, it could make Yi Chen too busy to counterattack. You're really abnormal. You've comprehended the word defend to this level in such a short time. Lan Yu descended from the sky and said speechlessly. Yi Chen said, your Blue Age is not bad. It has the meaning of endless. Lan Yu mainly cultivated the yin and yang profound. Yin and yang coexisted, and Blue Age displayed the essence of the yin and yang profound to the extreme. But it's not perfection yet. Lan Yu sighed and took out a huge stone from her storage ring, handing it over to Yi Chen. This is the word Wu. Comprehend it well. In the courtyard, a huge stone towered there, with a huge word written on it. Wu. This word seemed like an emperor. It was only a word, but it gave Yi Chen a feeling of inferiority. It was as if this word had transformed into an invincible martial artist. Even if it was motionless, it still gave off an intense feeling of intimidation, not daring to have the slightest blasphemous thought. The word Wu left behind by a demigod contains at least half of the demigod's martial arts essence, his lifetime of comprehension. Yi Chen could feel the boundless essence of martial arts from the word Wu. Just a little bit would be enough for him to digest for a long time. It would be impossible for him to digest it completely, unless he could become a legendary sovereign, and a peak one at that. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to comprehend this word Wu. I'll take it slow. I'll cultivate the 5 elements sword arts to greater completion first, then to perfection. Yi Chen calmed his mind and entered the strange space of the word Wu. Chapter 1360. The path of martial arts was vast and boundless. No one dared to say that they had comprehended all the mysteries of martial arts. This was because martial arts were just empty words. There were only stronger and no strongest. Even true gods, who were omnipotent, had to use martial arts to fight. And the martial arts of true gods were naturally divine-level martial arts. It was a type of martial arts that had already gained spirituality and was no longer limited by form. For example, the three realms killing fist of the supremacy of the three realms had turned into a tangible killing intent. This was still very far from divine-level martial arts, as far as the heavens and the earth, but at least it was already on this path. In the strange space with the word martial, Yichen clearly felt the vastness of martial arts for the first time. In a short period of time, the silhouette had already performed thousands of sword arts. Every sword art was a supreme sword art, and all of them had reached perfection. One should know that human strength was limited. It was impossible for one person to create so many sword arts, because there was no use for them. These sword arts were all automatically derived from the martial arts essence of demigods. They were not created by demigods. After seeing so many perfect supreme sword arts, if Yichen did not comprehend them, then he would really be stupid. Obviously, Yichen was not stupid. Otherwise, he would not have become the supremacy of 1,000 years. What a domineering sword art! Among the thousands of perfect supreme sword arts performed by the silhouette, there were sword arts with the four profound meanings of earth, water, fire, and wind as the foundation. This sword art was boundlessly domineering. With a swing of the sword, it was as if the world was going to be destroyed. With the profound meaning of yin and yang as the foundation, the sword art was smooth and smooth. It was like a flying immortal from the heavens. It was a stroke of genius, and there was no trajectory to it at all. With the profound meaning of light and darkness as the foundation, the sword art was profound and unpredictable. It wandered between light and darkness, and it could take lives. With the profound meaning of 5 elements as the foundation, the sword art was endless and boundless. With the profound meaning of time and space as the foundation, the sword art was difficult to distinguish between real and fake. Even time and space were mixed up. With the profound meaning of life and death as the foundation, one sword could kill one person. It was extremely dangerous. The thousands of sword arts were like a river. Yichen was swimming in the river, trying his best to absorb all the essence he could to strengthen his foundation. Unknowingly, 3 months had passed. Yichen's 5 elements sword art had reached the great completion realm. After the 5 elements sword art reached the great completion realm, Yichen created sword moves based on the 5 elements profound. However, this was not enough. Perfection was Yichen's lowest goal. Above supreme martial arts were supreme martial arts, which were martial arts that only legendary supremes could control. The reason why it was called supreme martial arts was that, in addition to the basic profound meaning, a supreme martial art also added the profound meaning of power. Before a supreme martial art reached perfection, although the profound meaning of power could be added, it couldn't be perfectly fused. It was like putting a cup of water and some pebbles in a cup. Although they were together, they couldn't be considered as one. What a supreme martial art needed to do was to fuse the fundamental profound and the profound meaning of power together, to display a power that could contend against the heavenly Tao, or even surpass it. Of course, to achieve this, one must first cultivate a supreme martial art to perfection. 6 months later, the 5 elements sword art finally reached perfection. The perfection of the 5 elements sword art contained a great power, completely activating the power of the 5 elements profound. In the past, although Yichen's metal, wood, water, fire and earth profounds had reached perfection, it was individual perfection and couldn't be considered as a whole. Now, Yichen's 5 elements profound had reached perfection, and the 5 profounds had already fused into one. I wonder if I can fuse the 5 elements profound and the strength profound together to create a supreme martial art. A thought flashed through Yichen's mind as he began to try. After a long time, Yichen shook his head. Just like the time profound after 90% completion, if one wanted to create or cultivate a supreme martial art, their yuan spirit had to be strong enough. Not to mention reaching the silver yuan spirit level. It had to be at least a quasi-silver yuan spirit. Success is due to the black wind stream. Failure is also due to the black wind stream. Understanding the importance of the yuan spirit, Yi Chen smiled bitterly. Back then, he was greedy for speed and disregarded the consequences. He studied the black smoke in the black wind stream on his own. The black smoke was the aura left behind by the imprisoned demonic sovereigns. The aura was mixed with resentment, curses, and some evil power, which caused Yi Chen's yuan spirit to be impure. Although it was improving rapidly, it stopped after reaching the bronze yuan spirit level. What was more serious was that the evil power was corroding Yi Chen's yuan spirit, trying to replace it. Of course, Yi Chen didn't regret it. If he didn't study the black smoke in the black wind stream, his yuan spirit might have just reached the bronze level, and his strength would at most be at the medium super sovereign level. He wouldn't have had those opportunities. There were many things that couldn't be explained clearly. There was no such thing as regret. Yi Chen just felt a little emotional. Only when my sword intent reaches the 9th level will I be able to destroy the evil power in the yuan spirit. Yi Chen knew that this was the only path he could take, and it was an extremely difficult one. After all, most of the legendary sovereigns' martial wills were at the 8th level. As for ordinary martial wills, they were completely excluded. After becoming a sovereign, their martial will would automatically transform into an elemental martial will. Moreover, most people had already comprehended an elemental martial will before becoming a sovereign. Although ordinary martial wills could improve quickly, they weren't enough to deal with an elemental martial will. In Yi Chen's yuan spirit, the evil power contained countless evil wills. How could ordinary sword intent destroy it? As this thought flashed through his mind, Yi Chen started to capture the will contained in the word martial. This demigod's martial will should be the immortal martial will. As time passed, Yi Chen gradually captured the fluctuations of the martial will. This fluctuation of martial will was extremely obscure, hidden in the depths of the essence of the martial art. If he wanted to completely understand it, he would have to completely comprehend the essence of the word martial. Obviously, Yi Chen couldn't do it. He could only sense the fluctuations and existence of this martial will to see if it could enlighten him. Immortal, vast, everlasting, indestructible. It was hard to imagine how powerful a demigod was. Just a single fluctuation of martial will was enough to make Yi Chen feel a sense of awe and reverence. The paragons of the 3 realms might have become demigods in the end, but the feeling they gave Yi Chen was far inferior to this demigod. As time passed, Yi Chen's immortal sword will continue to improve. Peak of the 8th level. Peak of the 8th level. At the peak of the 8th level, the immortal sword will couldn't improve any further unless Yi Chen could sense the fluctuations of martial will more deeply. If I were a paragon legend, my immortal sword will would have reached the 9th level. Yi Chen sighed. The higher one's cultivation level was, the more things they could obtain from the word martial. Although he had the strength of a paragon legend, he still wasn't a paragon legend. 2 years was too short for a paragon. It felt like a blink of an eye. In the end, Yi Chen still couldn't break through to the 9th level. Next, Yi Chen still had something to do. He had to integrate the 3 divine stones Ying Liexiong gave him into the Heaven Sword. If he succeeded, the Heaven Sword would become a 1-star Heavenly Saint weapon. The difference between a Heavenly Saint weapon and an Earth Saint weapon was not small. It was equivalent to the difference between a Paragon weapon and an Earth Saint weapon. Chapter 1361. A 9-star Earth Saint artifact seems to have reached its limit. In the courtyard, Yi Chen raised the heavenly sword high up. Surging sword qi radiated outwards. Space-time trembled and light circulated. The entire heavenly sword was like the center of a storm, blooming with boundless power. The integration of the first divine stone was rather smooth, but the integration of the second divine stone nearly failed. This made Yi Chen not dare to integrate the third divine stone. After all, a 9-star Earth Saint artifact was already very terrifying. Once the integration failed, even if the heavenly sword didn't explode, its origin would be damaged. The remaining divine stone, Yi Chen prepared to integrate it into the supreme armor. A normal supreme armor could no longer defend against a peak supremacy's attack. Even a grade 5 supreme armor would find it hard to defend against a legendary supremacy. It would be easily pierced and torn apart, unable to reduce the damage. If there was a supreme armor, it could at least reduce the damage. This was also the reason why Yi Chun could almost kill a quasi-legend supremacy in the Divine Fire Cave. It was because the other party's supreme armor was too weak, and Yi Chun's heavenly sword was too sharp. If the other party's supreme armor wasn't broken by the heavenly sword, then it could reduce a portion of the damage that Yi Chun inflicted on him. The armor on Yi Chun's body had already been damaged in the Desolate God Tower. The current one was a gift from Ing Liexiong. It was called the Black Eagle Battle Armor, a 4th grade supreme armor. A supreme armor was 10 times more precious than a supreme weapon. Ing Liexiong could gift a 5th grade supreme weapon to Yi Chun. As for a 5th grade supreme armor, even the Unfalling Eagle tribe didn't have many of them. Therefore, it was impossible for him to gift it to Yi Chun. After all, the higher the grade of a supreme weapon, the more divine stones it would take. For Yi Chun, a grade 4 supreme armor was enough. He could integrate at least 3 divine stones, so one was naturally not a problem. Without much effort, Yi Chun integrated the last divine stone into the heavenly sword armor. In an instant, the heavenly sword armor shone brightly, emitting an indestructible aura. Yi Chun estimated that the grade 1 Earth Saint armor was at least 10,000 times harder than the grade 4 supreme armor. A normal legendary supremacy might not be able to pierce through the heavenly sword armor, even with a low star Earth Saint artifact, unless it was a high star Earth Saint artifact. As long as it wasn't pierced, the heavenly sword armor could help Yi Chun reduce the majority of the damage. Rumble. On this day, the entire Unfalling Eagle tribe suddenly shook. The Starry Sky Bear Dog King, who was brought by Yi Chun to the Unfalling Eagle tribe, suddenly stood up. Its fur stood up, and its eyes were filled with ferocity and fear. Berserk beasts were different from martial artists. If a berserk beast wanted to become stronger, it could only devour the flesh and blood of other life forms. The stronger the life form, the greater the benefits it would bring to them. In order to nurture the Starry Sky Bear Dog King, Yi Chun would occasionally go out to hunt some berserk beasts that were stronger than the Starry Sky Bear Dog King, and use their flesh and blood to feed the Starry Sky Bear Dog King. Right now, the Starry Sky Bear Dog King's strength had already reached the level of a high-class supremacy. Enemy attack? Yi Chun guessed. Roar roar. The Starry Sky Bear Dog King walked over and growled at Yi Chun. You're saying that there's a powerful berserk beast invading the Unfalling Eagle tribe's array? Yi Chun asked in surprise. As the owner of the Starry Sky Bear Dog King, Yi Chun could understand the other party's growl. There's actually a berserk beast invading a rank 8 tribe. I wonder what's going on. Yi Chun brought the Starry Sky Bear Dog King and flew towards the place where the tremors were the strongest. The entire Unfalling Eagle tribe was in an uproar because of the tremors. Everyone was panicking. However, at this moment a thunderous voice rang out. It's a berserk beast. Everyone, don't be nervous. It was the leader of the Unfalling Eagle tribe, Ing Liexiong. Crackle. Lightning flashed, and Ing Liexiong instantly arrived outside the Unfalling Eagle tribe. In his line of sight, a huge dark golden berserk beast that looked like a pangolin was attacking the array. Its pair of golden eyes were filled with ferocity and coldness. Damn it, it's a legendary berserk beast, a gold-eating beast. Berserk beasts were also divided into ranks. A legendary berserk beast was naturally a berserk beast that had the strength of a legendary sovereign. For example, the Starry Sky Bear Dog King was a super berserk beast, and one day, it could also become a legendary berserk beast. There were many legendary berserk beasts in the Wilderness God continent, but most of them were on the weaker side. Only the 8 legendary berserk beasts were the most troublesome, and among them, the gold-eating beasts could be ranked in the top 3. As the name suggested, gold-eating beasts loved to devour metal. They could bite through any kind of metal, including sovereign-grade metals. As they had devoured countless sovereign-grade metals and absorbed their essence, their bodies were countless times harder than that of a sovereign-grade metal. No one below the demigod realm could hurt them. They couldn't even leave a mark on their bodies. In the entire wilderness god continent, the only things that could threaten the gold-eating beasts were the 5 Sky Saint artifacts. Among them, the Redbud Flower Tribe's Sky Saint artifact, the Redbud Battle Armor, could only be used to protect themselves. Ing Liexiong frowned. This was not the first time he had encountered gold-eating beasts. As the scourge of the wilderness god continent, the leaders of the 5 rank 8 tribes had once united to hunt down gold-eating beasts. What was funny was that the invincible Sky Saint artifact could only slightly injure gold-eating beasts. In order to prevent them from taking revenge, the leaders of the 5 tribes had to work together to cast a seal and seal gold-eating beasts. They didn't expect that gold-eating beasts would break out of the seal today. Are we going to start with the Unfalling Eagle tribe? Ing Liexiong opened his right hand, and a huge hammer appeared in his hand. The hammer had 8 petals, and a yellow light shot up into the sky, mixed with golden lightning. Sky Saint artifact, Sky Hammer. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The gold-eating beast's roar was very sharp, similar to a sound wave attack. Because of this sound, the ground within a radius of dozens of miles cracked inch by inch. The sharp sound even passed through the power of the formation, and was transmitted to the inside of the Unfalling Eagle tribe, causing many people to bleed from their orifices and fall unconscious. Don't be presumptuous. Ing Liexiong swung his hammer at gold-eating beasts. Bang! The yellow light exploded, and gold-eating beasts retreated dozens of steps. The Sky Hammer was a Sky Saint artifact after all. Even something as powerful as gold-eating beasts would be forced back. The furious gold-eating beast stomped on the ground with its hind legs, causing the ground to bulge and explode. In the next moment, gold-eating beast's speed burst to the limit and clawed at Ing Liexiong. The claw light was extremely bright, causing the world outside of the claw light to darken. In the world, there was only this claw light. Open heaven and earth! Ing Liexiong shouted and swung his hammer. The space-time in front of him twisted to the limit, and the wind, water, and fire became chaotic, turning into chaos and spreading out. The greatest sound was devoid of sound. At this moment, all sound disappeared. Only the bubbles of primal chaos were exploding and spreading. Within the protective range of the Unfalling Eagle tribe's array, Yi Chen sucked in a breath of cold air. Supreme martial skill combined with a heavenly saint artifact was actually this powerful. This was the Huangshan continent. If it were in the outer universe, Unfalling Eagle Liexiong's supreme martial skill might really be able to turn a vast expanse of space into primal chaos. Roar, roar, roar! The starry sky bear dog king kept growling. It wanted to become a legendary beast as powerful as gold-eating beasts and look down on the world of beasts. Chapter 1362. The man and the beast fought for hundreds of rounds. Neither of them could do anything to the other. Ing Liexiong's advantage lay in his powerful attack, and his weapon was the Sky Explosion Hammer, a heavenly saint weapon. The gold-eating beast's advantage lay in its powerful defense, and was not afraid of any attacks. After the battle, the grassland within a radius of 1,000 miles was destroyed. Some places sank hundreds of meters deep. Some places were piled up into mountains, and some places were riddled with holes. To be able to cause such a huge commotion on the Huangshan continent, it was definitely inhuman. The fact that the Huangshan continent was so sturdy was enough to prove how terrifying a true god was. To deal with experts below the true god level, a true god might only need to set up one rule. Damn it! Ing Liexiong faced the gold-eating beast alone. He was under a lot of pressure. He could only hope that the leaders of the other 4 tribes would come as soon as possible. Time passed slowly. An hour had passed. Ing Liexiong was sweating profusely and his muscles were sore. On the other hand, the gold-eating beast was getting stronger and stronger. Ing Liexiong, I'm here. In the distance, a voice as loud as a bell wave could be heard. It was a figure that was even more majestic than a bear. He held a gigantic axe in his hand, and with a swing of the axe, an axe light flew out. As it flew, the axe light expanded thousands of times. In the end, it was like an axe that could split the heavens, and it chopped down on the gold-eating beast. The leader of the Battle Pagoda tribe, Tai Tan, was holding the heavenly saint weapon, the heavenly battle axe. Apocalyptic thunder punishment. Almost at the same time that the axe light flew out, a lightning bolt as thick as a water bucket fell from the sky, bombarding the gold-eating beast's body. These lightning bolts weren't just ordinary lightning bolts. They were made up of lightning runes. Each lightning rune contained an enormous amount of lightning power. With billions of lightning runes gathered together, they could tear apart the world and judge all living things. It was the leader of the Yunzhong tribe, Yin Piaomiao. He held the heavenly saint weapon, the thunder punishment spear. Star-shattering. At the same time, a sea of stars spread out and covered the gold-eating beast. Then the sea of stars spun and exploded. It was as if a large part of the starry sky was being destroyed. How can I not use my star sea spear to deal with the gold-eating beast? The leader of the Star Ocean tribe, Chun Tianding, rushed over with the quintessential saint weapon, the Star Ocean spear. The 4 legendary supremes and the 4 heavenly saint tools immediately suppressed the gold-eating beast. However, it was obvious that the gold-eating beast was not a fish on the chopping board that could be slaughtered by anyone. The repeated setbacks had stimulated the gold-eating beast's true ferocity. A terrifying tyrannical aura filled the air, and even the space-time was in a state of chaos. Obviously, the gold-eating beast's tyrannical aura had affected and changed space-time. Compared to the gold-eating beast, the beasts that Yi Chen had seen before were simply obedient babies. Too cruel. Yi Chen sighed. When one's savagery reached a certain level, even one's aura could kill someone. Zhang Xian turned his head to look at Heaven Splitter. Due to the fact that he could tame it, the Starry Sky Bear Dog King had lost some of its wildness and ferocity. Even if it were to become an existence on par with the gold-devouring beast one day, it probably wouldn't be as savage as the Starry Sky Bear Dog King. Woo! Crack let out a low growl. It was indeed frightened by the cruelty of the gold-eating beast, and its legs were trembling. It couldn't be blamed for this. In the beast world, the strong preyed on the weak. Inferior beasts would always be suppressed by superior beasts. If the superior beast was extremely cruel, it would suppress the inferior even more. It was already not easy for Crack to stand still. If it were any other super beast, they would have already laid down and buried their heads in the ground. A sharp hissing sound filled the entire plains. The unfalling eagle tribe was so silent that even a pin drop could be heard. The desolate race's greatest natural enemy was the fierce beasts. The terrifying fierce beast in front of them was a nightmare for them. Even the 4 tribe leaders combined could not subdue it. If it were anyone else, they would have been easily torn to shreds. Z. An even sharper sound was heard. It was like a sharp knife that sliced through the plains. The gold-eating beast's figure turned blurry, as layers of dark golden shadows dazzled everyone's eyes. In the next moment, the gold-eating beast charged at Ing Liexiong. Although fierce beasts generally had low intelligence, they could still tell who was strong and who was weak. In the previous battle, Ing Liexiong had been greatly drained. The gold-eating beast's combat power erupted, prepared to deal a heavy blow to him. The gold-eating beast opened its mouth wide, as a brutal aura enveloped Ing Liexiong. Facing this extremely brutal aura, Ing Liexiong's body paused unnaturally. Just as the gold-eating beast was about to swallow Ing Liexiong, a purple beam of light flew over and blocked the gold-eating beast. Through the netherworld's sacred eye, Yi Chen could clearly see that the beam of light was enveloping a graceful figure. It was the Redbud Flower tribe's leader, Kong Siwei. She had spread her arms out, blocking the gold-eating beast at the critical moment. Clang! Sparks flew everywhere, and the gold-eating beast staggered back. As for Kong Siwei, she was like a cannonball blown away, creating a huge crater on the plains. But soon Kong Siwei flew out. With the protection of the Redbud Flower battle armor, it would be difficult for the gold-eating beast to hurt her. To a certain extent, her defense was stronger than the gold-eating beast's. Of course, her overall combat power was definitely not as strong as the gold-eating beast. Among the 5 heavenly saint weapons, although the Redbud Flower battle armor could not threaten the gold-eating beast, it was the most important. Without Kong Siwei blocking the gold-eating beast, the other 4 would be in danger. After all, they could not suppress the gold-eating beast to the point where it could not move. Join hands and cast the seal. Star Sea Tribe's leader Chen Tianding said. Yes. Ing Liexiong nodded seriously. If Kong Siwei had not helped him, he would have definitely been injured. The gold-eating beast was not only strong in combat power, but also in endurance. If they continued to fight, the gold-eating beast would become stronger and crazier, and they would slowly become weaker. Slow down. I think casting the seal is useless. It won't be long before it breaks out of the seal again. Kong Siwei objected. Then what should we do? Titan asked. Why don't we tear the space-time and send it into the Desolate God's secret territory, just like how our ancestors sent the other two legendary beasts into the Desolate God's secret territory. Desolate God's secret territory? The four were stunned. The Desolate God's secret territory was the most mysterious place in the Desolate God continent, and it was also the most dangerous place. Those who entered had never come out. Although they knew where the Desolate God's secret territory was, no one dared to go in. As Kong Siwei had said, sending the gold-eating beast into the Desolate God's secret territory was indeed the best way. No matter how strong the gold-eating beast was, once it entered, it would not be able to come out. However, tearing the space-time was not an easy task. Our Heavenly Saint weapons can be activated to the limit and tear the space-time slightly. I think with the 5 Heavenly Saint weapons combined, we should be able to tear a hole big enough to send the gold-eating beast into the Desolate God's secret territory. Kong Siwei said. Chapter 1363. In that case, let's give it a try. If it doesn't work, we'll seal it again. Ing Liexiong looked at the grassland and frowned. If the gold-eating beast continued to wreak havoc, the unfalling eagle tribe would definitely have to migrate. They had to deal with the gold-eating beast as soon as possible. The plan had been decided, but to carry it out, they still had to put in some effort. The gold-eating beast would definitely not enter the space-time crack obediently. The battle continued, and the grassland was ruined beyond recognition. With the protection of the formation, Yi Chen did not have to worry about the aftermath. His eyes stared at the 5 tribe leaders without blinking. Sometimes they would look at Ing Liexiong, Kong Siwei, Titan, Yun Miao Miao and Chen Tianding. These 5 people not only had Sky Saint weapons, but their strength was also extraordinary. The martial arts they used were all supreme martial arts. Not to mention facing the supreme martial arts, just looking at them made Yi Chen's heart tremble. Perhaps in terms of profoundness, supreme martial arts might not be much more profound than supreme martial arts. But after integrating the power ultimacy, supreme martial arts had the power to destroy the world that supreme martial arts did not have. Power ultimacy, power. What is power? Great power? Not necessarily. The power of everything's operation is too shallow. Watching the battle between the 5 legendary supremes and the gold-eating beast, Yi Chen seemed to see the shadow of power, vague yet real. Yi Chen's power ultimacy had already reached more than 90% and was close to completion. It was very difficult to complete the power ultimacy, mainly because Yi Chen was not a supremes in physique refinement, so he could not directly feel the deepest essence of the power ultimacy. It was very difficult for a supremes in physique refinement to cultivate a supreme martial art to completion. Power should be a kind of violence. The so-called violence is not violence in a narrow sense, but violence in a broad sense. Overwhelming 10 people is just one kind of violence. Unknowingly, Yi Chen's power ultimacy had grown to the completion realm, and was only one step away from completion. After raising the power ultimacy to completion realm, Yi Chen's aura changed subtly. Every action and gaze gave people a sense of oppression. Roar. Heaven Splitter was very sensitive. He instantly sensed Yi Chen's strange behavior. He ran over and rubbed his head against Yi Chen's shoulder. Berserk beasts were born with the innate ability to use the profound of power. The profound of power had already been integrated into their bloodline. In terms of exerting the profound of power, Yi Chen wasn't even a match for Heaven Splitter. This was because Heaven Splitter could already use the profound of power to perfection. Of course, Heaven Splitter himself didn't know any great principles. Using the profound of power to perfection was just an instinct. Therefore, when Yi Chen's profound of power improved, Heaven Splitter regarded Yi Chun as his master even more. Is this the essence of power? Yi Chun could feel the profound power contained in Sky Splitter's bloodline. In the past he couldn't see it. No wonder this savage beast gave off such a strong pressure. The battle between the leaders of the 5 tribes and the gold-eating beast had reached its climax. It had to be said that Kong Siwei was very useful. With her holding off the gold-eating beast, the other 4 could safely suppress it. Do it! An illusory redbud armor appeared outside of Kong Siwei's body. It not only gave her an indestructible defense, but it also increased her power to the same level as the gold-eating beast. With the help of her heart power explosion, Kong Siwei locked the tail of the gold-eating beast, making it unable to move. Open heaven and earth. Cut the sky and crack the earth. Crush the stars. Destroy the world thunder punishment. The leaders of the 4 tribes increased their desolation origin to the limit and threw it at a point in front of the gold-eating beast. The 4 supreme martial arts were extremely horrifying individually. When they were gathered at one point, their power reached the critical point of the Huangshan continent. The space-time suddenly shattered, and a thick space-time crack appeared. The inside of the space-time crack was chaotic, with colorful lights surging. It might have been a moment or a year, but the space-time crack became clear. A strange environment appeared in the space-time crack. The aura in the strange environment was primitive and wild, and it was 100 times stronger than the wild aura in the Huangshan continent. The leaders of the 4 tribes all knew the location of the Huangshan secret territory, so they didn't choose the location of the space-time crack blindly. The moment the space-time crack appeared, a horrifying suction was produced. Under this suction, large pieces of grassland were sucked in. Each piece was 100 miles wide, covering the sky. The gold-eating beast struggled with all its might. There was a trace of fear in its eyes. This fear didn't come from the space-time crack, but from the strange environment on the other side of the space-time crack. There was something there that terrified it. The space-time has been torn apart. Yi Chun was also terrified. The space-time of the Wild's continent had been strengthened to an unimaginable level by the origami. It could be imagined how powerful the Heavenly Saint artifacts and supreme martial arts were to be able to tear apart the space-time. However, the role of the legendary supremes couldn't be ignored. If it was Yi Chun who used the Heavenly Saint artifacts and supreme martial arts, the power would definitely be many times weaker than any one of them. Among the 5 people present, every one of their martial primordial spirits was at the silver level, and they weren't at the silver primary level. They were at least at the silver intermediate level or advanced level. Finally, the gold-eating beast was sucked in, along with a large piece of grassland. Kong Siwei and the others relied on the Heavenly Saint artifacts to resist the suction, but they were still locked in place and couldn't move. Once they moved, their center of gravity would deviate, and they would definitely be sucked in. At that time, it would be too late to cry. Through the space-time crack, the 5 people saw the scene on the other side. Suddenly, the environment on the other side changed into another place. There was a 2-headed fierce beast with dark gray skin. It had a dragon head and a snake head. This 2-headed fierce beast posed a far greater threat to the 5 people than the gold-eating beast. Could it be the legendary fierce beast, the Gemini Tyrannosaurus? Look, another fierce beast has appeared. It looks like the legendary fierce beast, Tifula. The environment changed again, and the 5 people saw another fierce beast. It looked like a baboon, and its eyes were blood red. It squatted there, and its eyes were cold, as if it could see through space-time. The gold-eating beast was one of the top 3 legendary fierce beasts in the Wilderness God continent. However, in the legends of the Wilderness God continent, there were many more terrifying legendary fierce beasts than the gold-eating beast. However, they had never appeared, so the wilderness race gradually forgot about them. If there was a ranking of the legendary fierce beasts that had appeared in history, the gold-eating beast might not even be in the top 20. In the space-time crack, the gold-eating beast's body trembled. In the world of fierce beasts, the weak were prey to the strong. It was even crueler than the civilizations of different races. Be it the Gemini Tyrannosaurus or Tifula, they only brought it fear, just like how Sky Splitter was afraid of it. It could feel that the environment inside was completely different from the outside. The fierce beasts that could survive inside were definitely 100 times more brutal than it was. The brutal ones were afraid of encountering even more brutal ones. Chapter 1364. Finally, the gold-eating beast was sucked to the other side, and the space-time crack was repairing itself. The gap was getting smaller and smaller, and finally, there was only a thin crack left, and it was about to close. Boom! The space-time suddenly shook violently, and the leaders of the 5 tribes took a few steps back. Kong Siwei was the closest to the shaking point, so she sat down on her butt. Her full chest was heaving up and down, and her face was full of shock. What is that? Kong Siwei opened her rosy mouth. The space-time crack that was about to close was suddenly opened up by a giant claw. The claw was dark blue, and it was covered in scales. A brutal aura came through the claw, and it made everyone feel like they had returned to the ancient times, where ferocious beasts roamed freely. They felt like they were floating, and there was no sense of security at all. Attack it! Don't let it come over! Kong Siwei screamed. She remembered a legend of the ferocious beast world. In the desolate god's secret territory, there was a demigod ferocious beast. Just from the size of the claw, the beast that opened the space-time crack was at least the size of a small mountain. It should be known that in the desolate god continent, the rules were very strict. The bigger a ferocious beast could maintain, the stronger it was. For example, the super ferocious beast Sky Splitter was only the height of a human, while the gold-eating beast was dozens of meters long. Other than that, it was impossible for a legendary ferocious beast to open a space-time crack with just one claw. Only a demigod ferocious beast could do that. Yes, attack it. The leaders of the other 4 tribes came to their senses. The desolate god's secret territory was very special. Tearing through space-time to enter was relatively easy, but tearing through space-time to come out was as difficult as reaching the sky. This demigod ferocious beast could not come out by itself, so when it saw the space-time crack, it took the chance to attack, trying to escape from the desolate god's secret territory. This concerned the safety of the entire continent, as well as their own. So the 5 of them attacked the dark blue claw, trying to force it back. Roar! Vaguely, the 5 of them, including Yi Chen and Sky Splitter, heard a terrifying roar. When Sky Splitter heard this roar, he immediately lay down. The difference between him and a demigod ferocious beast was too big. Just one roar was not something he could withstand. Luckily, the other party did not come with its real body, or else it would be even worse. Compared to the universe, this place is more like a mythical era. Yi Chen had already been shocked many times today, and the appearance of the dark blue claw had made him shiver even more. However, the universe doesn't seem to be that simple. Hell, the Milky Way, and other unknown places. In addition to the Black Wind Stream, where countless demons are imprisoned, there might even be demigod-level demons alive. It seems that the universe seems to be bound by an even stronger game rule. As he grew stronger, Yi Chen's view of things changed. In the past, he thought that Sky Demon Sovereign and True Martial Sovereign were the strongest in the universe. They were at least at the top level. Now, it seemed that he had been looking at the sky from the bottom of a well. The real experts had probably retreated behind the scenes. Perhaps because of the rules of the game, they couldn't force their way out. Or perhaps, they were like the dark blue giant claw beast, trapped in some place and unable to escape. With the lifespan of a demigod, how could they not know where they were? The 9-turn star was so safe because of the power of a demigod. Only by becoming stronger will I be able to obtain more information. Yi Chen would never stop growing stronger, and now there was another factor. Don't be disheartened. Let's grow together. Sky Splitter was huge. It could reach Yi Chen's waist even if it lay there. Yi Chen reached out and touched Sky Splitter's head. It was furry and very comfortable. Boom, boom, boom. The space-time trembled more and more violently. Although the dark blue giant claw could ignore the combined attacks of the 5 tribe leaders, it still had to bear the power of the space-time fissure. It could not fight back, and could only passively take the hits. With every hit, the space-time fissure would close a little, Once the space-time fissure was completely closed, the dark blue giant claw would definitely be cut off. Even demigods could not resist the rules set by the desolate god. Otherwise, there would not be so many legendary beasts trapped in the desolate god's secret realm. Seeing that the space-time fissure was about to close, the dark blue giant claw was squeezed out of shape. However, right at this moment, a terrifying power surged out from the dark blue giant claw. This power was not just any beast's power, but a higher-level power. How could the 5 tribe leaders not know that this was divine power? Divine power was different from pure energy. Divine power was a fusion of one's own cultivation, domain, will, and even heart power. In short, except for martial arts, basically everything had been fused into it. This was a power that surpassed nature, and could not be restrained at all. Not all demigods could cultivate divine power. Normally, only powerful demigods could do so, and new demigods had not even crossed the threshold. Of course, there was definitely a difference between the divine power of a demigod-level beast and the divine power of a true god. From the fact that this demigod-level beast was trapped in the desolate god's secret realm, it could be seen how huge the gap between a demigod and a true god was. A single rule could completely restrict you, and you could not resist it. Gotcha. The space-time fissure that was about to close suddenly collapsed. The dark blue giant claw stretched out, revealing an abnormally strong dark blue arm. Crack! Suddenly, a black lightning flashed, and the demigod-level beast's arm turned into dust. The space-time fissure instantly closed up. Luckily, the rules of the desolate god continent are very sensitive to divine power, or else we would have been killed in an instant. Kong Siwei still had lingering fears. The other 4 tribe leaders nodded. There had been too many demigods in the history of the desolate god continent, but very soon, these demigods would disappear from everyone's sight. Therefore, many people of the desolate race believed that other than entering the desolate god tower, as long as they could become demigods, they could leave the desolate god continent. This was also the goal that they had been working hard for. After solving the problem of the gold-eating beast, the 5 of them were a lot more relaxed. As for the demigod-level beast, they did not care about it at all. No matter how strong the demigod-level beast was, it could only stay in the desolate god-mystic realm. It had nothing to do with them. Ing Liexiong, that outsider young man in your tribe should have understood the word martial. Right? How is his strength? Yun Piaomiao looked at Yi Chun, who was protected by the array, and asked curiously. Ing Liexiong did not hide it. His sword skills have reached perfection. Perfection? That's really fast. No wonder he was the best in this year's tower. Yin Piaomiao was stunned for a moment before she smiled and said, "But tell him to be careful. The martial Dao primordial spirit of the youngsters in my tribe is already in a state of advancement. Once it reaches the silver martial Dao primordial spirit, he will become a legendary sovereign in name only." What is his identity? In truth, Ing Liexiong was very curious. I can't say. Yin Piaomiao shook her head. So mysterious, Ing Liexiong muttered. Ing Liexiong muttered. The relationship between the leaders of the 5 great tribes was very subtle. They were both opponents and friends, depending on the situation. Yin Piaomiao, look at how proud you are. My tribe's evil star became a legendary supremacy a week ago. Chen Tianding threw a bomb. What? So fast. Ing Liexiong and the rest looked at Chen Tianding. Chen Tianding smiled. Actually, he could have condensed the silver yuan soul a long time ago. It's just that he has cultivated a martial yuan soul secret technique. This secret technique requires sufficient accumulation to allow him to break through. Otherwise, there will be repercussions. Kong Siwei and Tai Tan looked at each other. Among the 5 tribes, only their 2 tribes did not have outsider geniuses. These outsider geniuses were too terrifying. Although Kong Xueli and Zhan Ta were also absolute geniuses, they were obviously weaker than the 3 of them. 10 years later, Evil Star will visit Yunzhong tribe. Tell the mysterious kid in your tribe to prepare. Chen Tianding continued. 10 years. It seems like Evil Star is quite confident. Yin Piaomiao smiled. If Evil Star went to challenge the bloodline of the great demon king now, the bloodline would definitely not be his match. The mention of 10 years later was definitely to give the bloodline a chance. The space outside the black wind stream was pitch black and deep as usual. Black air currents surged out from the cracks in the space, polluting the heavenly Tao law and causing the space to creak. Hiss! A very clear sound rang out. If anyone was here, they would definitely be dumbfounded. The space-time at the entrance of the black wind stream was like a piece of adhesive tape, being torn apart layer by layer by an invisible force. After dozens of layers were torn apart, a giant transparent lock appeared. The giant lock had yin-yang patterns, 5 elements patterns and space-time patterns. It was obvious that this was a sealing lock. Gotcha! The seal lock opened automatically. At the same time, the seals of the countless caves inside the black wind stream opened one after another. It seemed like the giant lock outside was the core of the seal of the entire black wind stream. The seal is gone. A faint voice came from one of the caves. Then, a figure covered in black smoke came out. The seal is gone. Haha, I'm finally free. In the blink of an eye, more than 100 plumes of black smoke shot out from the caves in the canyon walls. The auras that leaked out from the black smoke were all paragons. Of course, most of the caves were completely silent. Clearly, the wretched devils in those caves had long since fallen. Only these wretched devils could survive. In the caves deep in the canyon, a few voices were talking. It's been so long. To think that we've been imprisoned for more than 1,000,000 years. I wonder what the situation outside is like. After we get out, I'll definitely destroy a few planets of the human race with life. I haven't been locked up for so many years for nothing. I advise you not to be rash. We'll talk after we get out. Who cares? I don't believe that there's anything out there that can fight against us. As the few of them were talking, there was a sudden fluctuation in the depths of the cave. Then, endless black smoke surged out, eventually turning into a faint golden human figure. A terrifying pressure radiated out. Congratulations on your release, Lord. The few voices hurriedly said. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.